Well, President Trump has now publicly ordered federal agencies to start identifying and releasing government files tied to alien and extraterrestrial life, UAPs, UFOs. That directive hit on February 19th, and the message from the White House was basically this: the public wants answers. Hello? Yes, we do. We've been asking for it for decades, so start opening up the vault, as if this was new information to Congress or presidents of the United States. President Trump has openly admitted that he gets that question a lot. Well, if you're getting that question a lot, there's probably a reason behind it. So is it actually happening? Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth was asked about it on Monday during a stop in Colorado. I guess Secretary of War now. I keep calling him the Defense Secretary. And he didn't brush it off during this brief press conference. He said, "We've got our people working on it right now. We're digging in." Watch.
3 days ago, President Trump directed you to begin the process of identifying and releasing the UFO and UAP files. Did you ever think that you would be the Secretary of War in charge of potentially declassifying extraterrestrial life to the American people?
I did not have that on my bingo card at all.
And are you prepared to do that now?
Of course. I mean, we've got our people working on it right now. I don't want to oversell how much time it will take, right? We're digging in. We're going to be in full compliance with that executive order, eager to provide that for the president. So there'll be more coming on that as far as the process of what we'll do.
And what sort of time frame? Do you have any sense for how long this is going to take?
I don't have a time frame for you yet, but stand by. We'll get it for you.
And do you think aliens are real?
What's happening?
What?
Do you think aliens exist?
We'll see. I get to do the review and find out along with you.
So that's on the Pentagon side. You know, it's interesting. When I worked at Fox and Friends and sat next to him on the couch, we did an after the show one time where we talked all about aliens and disclosure, and sitting in the middle between the two of us was Ainsley Earhart, who said, I don't even give it a thought. I don't even think about it. And I was just shocked by that. You don't give it a thought at all. And Pete and I had a friendly discussion about it, and the idea that clearly we're not alone. So I think he's on the side of believing that we're not alone. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but so that's the Pentagon side. Now, here's what's happening on the congressional side, because Congress has been quietly building the scaffolding for this moment. The 2026 NDAA language, the National Defense Authorization Act, pushes the Pentagon an arrow to brief lawmakers on UAP intercept operations going back to 2004, including the number, location, and nature of intercepts tied to NORTHCOM and NORAD, and what data was collected during those encounters. Will we actually get those answers? It's hard to say. Congressman Tim Burchett recently confirmed something that we've reported on our show with Secret Space Program insiders: massive UFOs or space arcs hidden in spaces around the world, some underneath the ocean. Listen to Tim Burchett.
What if these are entities that are here on this earth, that have been on this earth, that who knows how long, and that we think they're coming in from way out. Maybe they did millennia ago, but they're here and they're in these deep water areas. And that's why, I mean, like we say, we know more about the face of the moon than we do what's going on there. And we have a higher propensity of sightings around these 5 or 6, I believe, deep water areas. And so to me, it just, it creates a question there. And then when we have naval personnel telling me that we have these sightings and that there's these underwater craft they're chasing that are doing hundreds of miles an hour, and the best we've got is something that does maybe just a little under 40 miles an hour. So I got a lot of questions about that stuff, and I mean,
yeah, you're not alone, Congressman. You also had the House Oversight Declassification of Federal Secrets Task Force holding hearings focused on UAP transparency, whistleblower protection. Some of these whistleblowers who've come forward and we've handed over to congressional offices then found themselves without a job and fired from their jobs. So, like, where's the whistleblower protection for these people? Congress needs to answer for that. So the big question isn't, are aliens real? We know that. That has been confirmed. That's on the congressional record. That ship has sailed. The big question now is, what's actually in the files? What kind of disclosure are we prepared to hear about from President Trump and the Pentagon? And how long has the United States government been working with aliens, reverse engineering these craft? We have a lot of questions. So that's what today's show is all about. Ron James, Director of Media Relations at MUFON, is joining us. Also, the chief bottle washer behind a brand new film that's coming out here. Let's put this up on the screen, which is called, Ron, Accidental Truth.
This one's Accidental Truth Next. It's the follow-up to my last film that came out in 2023. And this one is really focusing on beyond UFO disclosure, because now we're at the point where acknowledging non-human intelligence is something that we just need to accept. And we really need to take a hard look at what's going to happen to humanity and society next. And
I love that because it's like, oh, do you believe in aliens? Like when that reporter asks that question of Pete Hegseth, it's like, well, it's not a matter of believing about it. It's on the congressional record. Like, what's there to believe about? It's true. So, like, the next phase, and I love that. I also want to bring in James Fox, creator of Moment of Contact, great documentary filmmaker, one of my favorites. James recently held a press conference in Washington, D.C. with lawmakers, major whistleblowers, and he has some new exclusive information that he's going to share with our audience today. Both of you brought new exclusive information that you're going to share with our audience today, and some never before seen footage, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. So, gentlemen, welcome in. I really wanted to have a really deep dive roundtable discussion about where we sit right now with President Trump kind of on the precipice of all of this. So welcome to the show, both of you guys.
Thanks for having us. This is a rare opportunity. James and I are friends, and we speak a lot throughout time, especially in Washington. But to have us both on the same show at the same time is a rarity.
Yeah, and James, I know you've been busy and with these lawmakers and members of Congress. So do you sense that we're at a tipping point moment here?
Well, so I follow what's going on online and taking people's temperatures, and there are a lot of people out there that are criticizing this position. Oh, it's a big distraction, or it's this other thing, but we've been watching this story build for quite some time now, beginning with the first congressional hearings in 2022. Then we had 2023 with David Grush, and that was the first time we had serious allegations of crash retrieval and biologics, aliens, non-human intelligence. Then, of course, 2024, we had another whistleblower talk about crash retrieval. Of course, that was Lou Elizondo under oath to a bipartisan group of lawmakers. So we've been seeing this happen slowly. Excuse me. A lot of people feel frustrated because it's not happening fast enough. But I'll remind you guys that, I think it was like 2024. After the last congressional hearing, there was a senator who got up before the crowd and said, look, I know you feel that things aren't happening fast enough, but I want to remind you guys that this was Senator Rounds, that we are running a marathon. This is not a 100-yard dash. Now the current administration, it's the first time it's unprecedented as far as I'm concerned. The president of the United States, directly out of the White House, just instructed, I know there's specific language that needs to be carefully crafted, and that's in the works, and there will be press conferences coming up with people part of the task force to craft said language so that the whistleblowers will feel more comfortable. But this is unprecedented. We have two presidents just in the last week or so talking about aliens.
Yeah.
Of course, President Obama walked it back a little bit, but President Trump's like, hey, he violated security. Like, he shouldn't have said that. It's like, wow, I'm watching this whole thing go down, and then of course, Truth Social, he makes this announcement. I'm very excited, and I think that it's going to take all of us to keep this momentum and hold their feet to the fire.
James is nicer than I am, Ron. I feel like I'm always a glass half full kind of guy. I'm usually a positive person. But when I see Obama make those comments and then walk it back and then Trump comes out, I almost feel like in some way, this is just me, shoot it down, yeah. Tell me I'm wrong. I almost feel, Ron, like I'm being played here. Like someone was playing good cop, bad cop, and there's something bigger than the presidents of the United States is at play here, and they're basically instructing them, like, this is how we're putting this thing out. We got Steven Spielberg's Disclosure movie coming out in the summer. Like, you got to start laying the groundwork for all of this.
Well, I believe that that's true. I think we have to look back at 2017 when Lou Elizondo first came out talking about the Pentagon's ATIP program. It's been almost a decade, you guys, and we still haven't gotten anything super definitive. Now, have we made progress on the political front? Sure. But if we look back in the 50s, we had similar things happening and unfolding inside the political body. And I am somebody who believes, and James and I don't always see eye to eye on this, I think that The people that are in control of this information are in the process of an organized rollout of certain narrative that they want us to know, probably because they have to tell us something at this point. But are we ever going to get the entire truth through this process? I'm very skeptical. So I think the whole thing's been orchestrated for some time. And I think that the people that we see front-facing the media, and to a certain extent, even the people within Congress, are all part of something that's being organized behind the scenes.
All right, let's take that. I don't want you guys to duke it out here, but I mean, look, you know how UFO Twitter can be. Oh my gosh.
Man, that's the most toxic environment on the planet. They need a super fun cleanup.
I would like to counter that because a lot of people are like, oh, the government suddenly had this huge epiphany and they wanted to come clean with the general public. That's not what happened. In 2017, in protest of excessive secrecy, Lou Elizondo, with the help of Chris Mellon and a couple of others, decided to walk some evidence. They found a loophole out of the Pentagon, literally in a briefcase, like X-Files style, and onto the front page of the New York Times. That's why it happened. And it's been the same thing that's been going on for decades. You've got some good people on the inside that feel that the public has a right to know what's going on. And I think one of the reasons why we're talking about aliens, and I had discussed this quite some time with a number of insiders. Look, the technology is going to remain classified, and I can tell you why. If that technology, obviously everyone admits that the exhibited technology flies the rings around our fastest jets, doesn't have any visible means of propulsion, it can hover, accelerate from the standstill, out of sight, in the blink of an eye, radical turns at high speed, yada, yada, yada. If they can weaponize that, then and put a nuke on there, that's, so I would imagine that whoever is in possession of this technology is going to keep it classified for national security reasons. But the fact that we're not alone, and the fact that we have biologics, which I'm absolutely convinced of, I mean, just Roswell alone, I've done other cases, for instance, the 1996 Virginia UFO incident. I'm absolutely convinced we have biologics, and those shouldn't be classified. I think the government can admit that we have those biologics. And by the way, I was told just recently a lot of them are on the East Coast, not too far from Washington, D.C.
You guys have heard about the bearskin hoodie, right? Well, smart people are grabbing theirs right now because when it's freezing, I know another big snowstorm is hitting the East Coast right now. You want gear that actually keeps you warm. Bearskin is running a 60% off deal right now, so you can finally upgrade that sad excuse for a winter hoodie that you've been suffering in. These hoodies are built for serious cold weather. 340 GSM of bearskin fleece, 10 legit pockets, muscular fit, even zips into the heavy storm rain jacket to turn it into a full waterproof armor. Whether you're hiking, hunting, traveling, or just hate being cold, this is the last hoodie that you'll ever need. You'll get free U.S. shipping, fast delivery, and you're finally kitted out properly for winter. It's a win-win. So do yourself a favor. Text the word redacted to 741-776 to lock in your 60% off. So see that number on your screen? 741-776. Just text the word redacted, and you'll get a link sent straight to your phone so you can check it out later if you're busy right now. And when you shop Bearskin, you're not just getting killer gear, you're also supporting the fallen outdoors and the Hope for the Warriors Veterans Program. So don't wait till you're freezing to realize your hoodie sucks. Get a Bearskin now while it's 60% off. Text the word redacted to 741-776. You know, microplastics are infiltrating every part of our lives. Scientists estimate we now consume a credit card's worth of plastic every single week through our food, water, and the air that we breathe. One study found plastic particles in 100% of human lung samples. Nobody is safe from exposure. And, you know, right now, we know that plastics sit in the body. They cross the gut lining. They leach into your blood and disrupt everything. And they've been shown to alter our gut bacteria, which suppresses our immune response and can actually damage our DNA. Even if you eat clean and avoid packaged foods, you're still being exposed. You can't opt out of this, but your gut can actually help you fight back. And that's why we want to tell you about our friends Kimchi One from Brightcore Nutrition is a potential ally in this toxic world. It's packed with over 900 probiotic strains unique to kimchi and proven to break down BPA. In fact, right before the show, I just took my supplements. I just took 2 of these capsules right before the show, along with my protein smoothie today. And it helps you detox from inside out. That's what Kimchi One does. It doesn't just support digestion. It helps protect your cells, your brain, your hormones, and your future. Your body was never designed to handle plastic. but your gut was designed to protect you, and you have to give it the right tools, and that's why Kimchi is so powerful. Right now, you can get 25% off with our code REDACTED. Just go to mybrightcore.com/redacted, get 25% off. And for an even better deal, if you want 50% off, just call my friends at Brightcore, get up to 50% off and free shipping. That number is 888-404-6312. So the biologics, hopefully we'll hear about it. And that's already on the congressional record, David Grush confirming that. And I think we've heard from a couple of different whistleblowers now who confirmed that the U.S. government has biologics, alien body parts, pieces, full bodies. Can you speak to that? Full bodies do we have?
So I'll say something that I think is really interesting. Just, let's see, January 15th, January 16th, I had flown out firsthand witnesses. Unfortunately, I would have had a lot more, but the visa process got stepped on. But we did get a neurosurgeon, Dr. Italo, which we have a clip of him, who, unless he's lying, and if he's lying to his wife, his kids, his coworkers, his colleagues, and he's still a sitting head neurosurgeon at regional hospital in Varginha, Brazil today.
I know, but this is a guy that just now is coming out and saying, oh yeah, I operated on an alien, when he's been denying it for all these years. So he was either, if he's not lying now, he was lying then. So he's lying either way.
Well, so he didn't say anything for years. He didn't tell his wife. We found him and we confronted him about a year and a half ago, and he admitted that the video was real. We had a name of who shot the video. We were going after the video, but when asked to go any further, he's like, nope, that's it. That's all I'm giving you. I didn't see anything else. And then he had a heart attack. And he was lying in the ICU staring at the ceiling, and he said to himself, if I survive this, I'm coming clean. I think future generations have a right to know. And that's why Dr. Italo ultimately came clean, because we hammered him and kept going back and ultimately came forward. My point is this. We brought him in a closed-door meeting with sitting members of Congress just in January, and I was shocked. We had him, we had the forensic pathologist that did the autopsy on the deceased military officer, Marco Cheriz, who allegedly captured the creature. And like, you'd think just a few years ago, you'd go and meet with sitting members of Congress and talk about these stories. We had a crash witness, DeSouza was there, and Luna and Burchett, and there were some staff members, and Congressman Burleson were asking extremely intelligent, hyper-focused questions, taking it very seriously. We had an event 5 days later at the National Press Club. We had a sitting member of the Senate come and attend the event, give a speech. Burleson gave a speech. And not to say that, look, you're going to just believe them for the sake of believing them, but taking the allegations very seriously, asking pointed questions, and meeting with the witnesses, looking them in the eyes. I mean, that's a huge step in the right direction. And I can't think of a better crash retrieval case that we should stick our teeth in, because we've got a date, we've got location, and we have over 6 firsthand eyewitness testimony witnesses that came within a few feet of allegedly a being of non-human intelligence.
You know, it's one of those things. I'm kind of in the middle on you, because I have James's optimism, but I also understand Ron's idea that we're in like a limited hangout phase now.
I know Lou Elizondo pretty well, and when I interviewed him in 2017, I had the premise that he's still working, and I still believe that, and he has never denied it to me. Once you're in this community, whether you're a retired intelligence agency person, you're never not in the loop, and you're never not working. I still hold to the idea that because of certain things being forced, like the advancement in civilian space technology, the fact that at some point it's going to be hard to deny and disprove that we are having these encounters, that the government and the people that have managed this information surreptitiously for years have decided that, hey, we're going to have to disclose something. And I still believe that Lou was put in place as the guy to come forward and do that, and he does what he's told. Chris Mellon did what he did because he had permission. If you look at the fact that these guys rolled this information out in the way they did it, they all did it with the blessing of the DOD. There was a little bit of theater around that, But for the most part, they didn't come out and disclose classified. Lou himself says, I'm not a whistleblower. And in my new movie, he says he's not a whistleblower. At the same time, he's encouraging people to be whistleblowers. So the idea that that this was all spontaneous, I just have a hard time believing it, because the history of the management of this information is well documented, and the history of disinformation is well documented. And the way things have unfolded since 2017 has been largely orchestrated. And I still believe that, and I think it's happening now. And that's why whatever we're going to get from Donald Trump is going to be, my prediction is that it's not going to be what people expect, especially the UFO community.
So I come down on, again, I'm sort of in the middle of this. Like, I agree, we've been given like a limited hangout, and this is all being orchestrated, but there's huge truths that are part of this limited hangout that we're being given, you know,
absolutely.
to James's point. So we're seeing like massive revelations that are unfolding. We're probably not, to James' point, going to get this technology, that there's probably too much money at stake, and these companies are going to get pieces of it. Honeywell will get pieces of it, you know, and suddenly we'll have med beds 15 years from now that Honeywell just rolled out, and you can cure a broken bone.
That's been going on since, you know, before the 40s.
But you guys, you know, you have to take into account, people are people, okay? People are people, whether they're with the CIA, whether they're with the FBI. There are some good ones and there's some bad ones. I mean, I've met with the current head of Arrow, John Klosklowski. I mean, I met with him. And he was transparent with his look and transparent with what he basically told me. Because I was talking about these various cases. I was talking about Rua. I talked about Varginha. I talked about Socorro. I said, you know, and there was another guy from Air Force Office of Special Investigations. I'm not supposed to mention his name, but I was like, you guys know that ultimately you're gonna realize, if you haven't already, that a very small percentage of these things are of non-human origin. And John Klosklowski, what are you going to do? Is there a plan to disclose that to the general public? Like, what are you guys going to do? I said, we're not going away. Like, this isn't going away. The phenomenon's been here. It's always been here. Like, it's coming out. And John looked at me, and he's very measured. And he said, James, I can't part my own hair without approval from the DOD. And you can quote me on that. Now, I'll just back up for a minute here, because we had a whistleblower, the former head of the CIA, back in, it was in the 60s in the New York Times, and it was Roscoe Hillenkotter, I believe. And he basically spilled the beans back, I think it was late 50s or early 60s, you can look them up, about like behind the, you know, they make jokes and there's nothing to it. Behind the scenes, this is one of the serious issue. They're scrambling to come up with answers. Like, so there have been attempts multiple times over the decades to get this out to the general public. People that have worked on the inside and decided, hey, you know what? The general public has a right to know. People have consciences. People have children. They have grandchildren. I mean, Dr. Italo said, I'm doing this for future generations. I'm in my twilight years. I'm coming forward. I'm risking everything, my credibility, because I feel like the newer generations have a right to know. So people have consciousness. Like, and people will say, well, Lou's an insider. Well, yeah, okay, great. And he's an insider with, in my opinion, someone who believes he's doing it for the right reasons, and he's putting his ass on the line. What has he said that doesn't align with my 30 plus years in the field? Because I've been all over the world, and I've been recently doing crash retrieval stuff as well. I haven't heard him say anything. Obviously, there's the threat narrative, and I understand why they do that, because that gets attention to members of Congress. You've got something unidentified whizzing around with impunity, and particularly sensitive nuclear facilities and things of that nature. I think they use that as a sort of excuse and a hook, because I can assure you, if what David Fravor had seen had a Russian or a Chinese flag on it, it would be all hands on deck.
Yeah, go ahead. Well, I was going to say, I want to play, we have this clip of Dr. Italo here. And James, maybe you can set this up. I want to play it. And then we have a lot of other good sound bites here as well from Ron that I want to play. So what are we seeing here in this clip of Dr. Italo?
So Dr. Italo, we had approached him a couple of years ago because we have some people on the inside in various hospitals in Virginia that we've been meeting with for over the last decade. And my primary objective is to get the video. So we had heard that he'd seen the video. So we went after him about 2 years ago. He confesses. I had a Zoom video call with him. He confesses that he did see the video. He gave us the name of the individual who had shot the video, who died of a heart attack in 2018. And then when pressed further, he denies any further involvement. Then he had a heart attack. So we went back and hit him again. We talked to 2 forensic pathologists. I got them on camera, Dr. Giannini, Dr. Armando, and we got them to give Dr. Italo a call. That was January of 2025, I believe. And he confesses finally to us. He goes, full Monty, I had a heart attack. I can't die with this information. The future generations have a right to know. And there are other stories. So Dr. Italo gave us an on-camera statement, which we did with all people because we were concerned whether or not people got their visas. And this statement was taken in December. And it's Dr. Italo in the hospital with his gear on. And he's talking about, yes, I had face-to-face contact with a living captured alien, non-human intelligence, limited communication, and it's phenomenal. And I have to remind your audience, if he is lying, then he's lying to his wife, he's lying to his children, he's lying to his coworkers, he's lying to his colleagues, and he is to this day, right now today, a sitting head neurosurgeon at Regional Hospital in Varginha, Brazil. He's not selling a book. He's not selling a movie. He's not selling his story. He's not asking for a dime. He's willing to take a public lie detector test under oath, put his hand on the Bible, whatever it takes. And this is happening right now. And he flew to the United States to meet with members of Congress. Like, I just don't see a motive. So go ahead and play the clip.
Meu nome é Ítalo Denelli Venturelli. Eu juro que o que eu vou dizer para vocês é verdade, nada mais do que a verdade. Sou médico há 46 anos e em 1996, no dia 20 de janeiro, eu fui chamado para ver um paciente, né? E quando eu fui ver, não era um ser do nosso planeta, né? Que fui chamado eventualmente para dar minha opinião sobre o caso e eu vi o caso sob o ponto de vista médico. Consciente, sem dor, sem sangramento, respirando bem, muito calmo, muito tranquilo, parecia uma criança de uns 7 anos, branquinho, não tinha mau cheiro, a cabecinha grande, mas em forma de gota, né? Boca pequenininha, uma das mãos estava dentro de um campo e outra para fora. O olho não era vermelho, estava lilás, também em forma de gota, e me olhou de uma maneira muito tranquila, não estava agitado, não estava agressivo, não estava com dor, e na minha opinião não estava com medo também. Na minha opinião, estava entendendo o que estava acontecendo ali. É um olhar muito bonito de ver, um olhar assim sem julgamento, né? 2 vezes ele olhou para mim, olhou para a janela, olhou para mim outra vez. Eu senti assim, eu fiquei próximo dele, né? 1,5 metro, assim, não toquei nele, mas eu fiquei próximo. E a maneira de olhar é uma maneira assim que ele parece que era uma inteligência maior do que a nossa, do que a humana, né? Que ele estava entendendo, apesar de ele estar assim numa situação de defesa, ele não estava com medo, ele estava entendendo o que estava acontecendo, né? Possivelmente deveria ter algum propósito, alguma coisa para estar fazendo o que ele estava fazendo. E a verdade é que eu sou testemunha ocular, eu vi o ser sim. Podem falar o que for, brincam, zombam, falam uma porção de coisas, mas eu vi ali, deitado na minha frente. É importante as pessoas saberem que não estamos falando de dinheiro, estamos falando de uma coisa que muda o conceito da humanidade, né? Que é um ser de um outro local. Eu fui lá, não fui procurar, eu fui lá por um acaso, ver um outro paciente e eu vi. Então eu acho importante as pessoas saberem que sim, quem fala que viu, quem viu espaçonave, viu, nós vimos mesmo. E não é fácil ficar aqui na frente da câmera falando sobre isso. Que perguntam, parece que a gente está mentindo, você tem que insistir. Já jurei que vi mesmo e vi, né? Que os seres mais novos acreditem que existe sim.
I mean, where's the motive? Where's the motive? And not only that, there was another clip I wanted you guys to play. I brought all the doctors together for the first time in history, okay? All the leading doctors, the cardiologist, Dr. Cesario, who worked on the military officer, Marco Shrees, before he died after he allegedly captured this creature, suffered a scratch under his arm. He threw the kitchen sink at him, couldn't keep him alive. He'd never seen this sort of resistant to any antibiotics bacteria in his life. And the military officer dies. The individual who did the autopsy, Dr. Armando, on the deceased military officer, then Dr. Giannini, who did the tissue samples, he was involved, and then Dr. Italo, and brought them all. Dr. Italo is the neurosurgeon you just saw, talking about face-to-face contact at Regional Hospital. Brought them together for the first time because I was like, let's talk about this character. How long have you known this neurosurgeon? 35 years? 45 years? 38 years? Okay, what about his wife? What about his kids? Like,
right. Is he a liar? Does he have any other motives? And what did
everyone stood behind him? It was like, this guy is a pillar of our community. We've had nothing but respect for him. And it really, I mean, yeah, there are some pieces of the puzzle that are missing, but we knew that regional hospitals were one of these live creatures, and possibly two went. We also, paralleling this effort, we went after the former chief of police, Pedro Aguilar, and we got him on camera. He died 3 months later. He talked about he participated in the incident. He was a firsthand witness, but he wouldn't go into great detail. And what led us to him is another it was actually a photograph. He said a bunch of things on camera, incredible things. It's in the new cut of Moment of Contact. I need to make that distinction. It's new revelations of alien encounters. Moment of Contact, new revelations of alien encounters. But he makes this plea on camera, and then he dies a couple months later. But we went back just last month, and we met with his son, his two sons, his daughter, his wife, now a widow, his lawyer, got them all on camera. And we had a little piece of the puzzle from the kids. And then the lawyer gave us everything on camera, like exactly what happened in his participation. And we're pretty convinced now that the alien that was at Regional Hospital in the morning was captured in the morning, and Pedro Aguilar was a witness to that incident. And he went on camera, not specifying exactly what had happened, but that he was a witness to the incident. And then his kids said, yeah, he saw the creature. His daughter said, yeah, he saw the creature. His wife said, yes, he saw the creature. His two sons said, yes, he saw the creature. And then his lawyer gave us the whole story about it.
So here's that clip of the group of doctors that are brought together. I want to play this real quick, and as they're verifying Dr. Italo. Watch.
Question. I'd like to ask Giannini how long Giannini has known Italo.
Há quanto tempo que o senhor conhece o Ítalo?
Desde que ele chegou em Varginha.
Ainda usava fralda.
So a long time. They say a long time.
48 anos.
48 years.
48 years.
Você chegou menos.
Dr. Armando, how long have you known?
35 anos.
35 years.
35 years. How long have you known Italo?
35 também.
35 years. So, doctors, when he says he saw the creature in captivity at Regional Hospital, do you guys believe him?
Então, quando o Dr. Ítalo fala que ele viu a criatura no cativeiro, né, no CTI, vocês acreditam no que ele fala?
Sim, certeza. Doutor Cesário.
Credibilidade para isso.
Doutor Cesário, doutor Ítalo. Já viram infecção bacteriana como correr dessa maneira? Em 7 dias?
No. Dr. Italo.
Yeah, universally, it seems they're all saying that he's the pillar of the community and supporting his position.
I went there. I mean, people could sit on the sidelines and criticize. Yeah, there's a video of him admitting that the video exists, that there was a video of the creature exists, but he denied anything further at that point. But since that point, he had the heart attack, and he decided, you know what, I'm all in on this. You have to remember, not just the military threats to all the people, the vast majority of people that we've met with, but just the people within the community. I mean, you're a neurosurgeon working on people's brains, and you're seeing aliens. I mean, that's not exactly a career-enhancing story, right? So he's taking huge risks to come forward. And again, I remind your audience, all the other doctors in the community, the cardiologists, the forensic pathologists, they're all standing behind him. And even Dr. Giannini has written a statement about the bacteria that he found from the deceased military officer. Never seen a bacteria that strain the way it had evolved on Earth in ever before or ever since. It's incredible. So everything kind of aligns. That we'd known that he'd come to regional hospital. He would have been the doctor that was on duty at regional hospital. And there are other people that are staged to come forward that were at the hospital when that entity was there. I had a nurse confirm to me, not ready to come forward just yet, but it was there. I know he's telling the truth. I said, how do you know? Because I was there. I was like, wow. So there's, with age of disclosure and all these allegations of crash retrieval and biologics and aliens, this is the case. It's the first time in history we have such credible, allegations or claims of direct contact with a captured alien. It's never happened before. So I'm not asking your audience to say just believe them because they're saying it, but there's enough firsthand eyewitness testimony to merit a deep dive into this case. Members of Congress, I introduced them to this case because they can look for the flight. We know that a plane from the United States came in to Campinas, Brazil in January of 1996 on or around the 20th of January. So let's get those flight logs. Let's find out who was on that airplane. There's got to be at least 5 to 10 possible witnesses to that incident. So we're just going to keep digging. We're on the American side because I think this is the case that could prove or disprove all these allegations of crash retrieval.
The other big piece of this, Ron, of course, is members of Congress and what, I know you and I have some trepidation about who's in, who's out on wanting disclosure and what they're being told. You sat down and spoke with Congressman Burleson and Burchett and others.
And Andre Carson and Kirsten Gillibrand and pretty much the whole gamut. I honestly believe, first let me just congratulate James on the work he's done on Moment of Contact. I am not going to be one who disputes his work or the film in any way or even any of the witnesses. I've watched this guy for years going down to Brazil and doing the true investigative reporter work. And he has sunk his teeth into this thing and he has not let go. And I know that getting these witnesses to come forward and getting this story to evolve in the way it has been a true task. And he's done it with, I admire his diligence in doing it. And
well, I should say from MUFON, Mutual UFO Network perspective, yeah, and I agree with you. I know I'm supposed to be an impartial journalist, but I've watched James's work over the years, many years, and have been a fan. So put that bias out there for you, James. But from the MUFON perspective, Ron, MUFON gets a ton of reports. People report into the Mutual UFO Network. I mean, what patterns are you seeing right now? Locations, shapes, behaviors, and what do you say maybe the percentage of things that you guys just are so easily, quickly to dismiss? I think that's why James's work stands out, right? You guys receive so many reports at MUFON that you just this is not credible at all. And then
we're approaching nearly 200,000 case reports since time MUFON was founded. And the trends right now are the actual numerical trends for what we're able to explain versus what we can't explain have always run about 94% explainable. And it's that 6% that is unexplainable that is really where we focus our investigative resources. But right now we see anytime there's a SpaceX launch, forget it. Yeah, there's UFO reports just going absolutely crazy. And there is an uptick in the submersible type reports of craft coming out of water and things like that. But we also think that has something to do with the increased publicity surrounding that, because as we start to take a deep dive into the reports, and I know other groups are saying there's this big uptick, but when you investigate the reports, most of them have mundane explanations. So it seems like it's pretty much, and then of course the drone activity is causing more. What we're seeing the biggest trend is experiencers. People that are having personal experiences that seem to have a lot of correlations no matter where on the planet they're happening, the stories they're telling, the messages they're conveying. These things are all fairly consistent among the ones that we can weed out as not being people that have mental issues and reasons for having these experiences that are not that are easy to identify through our process. But the experiencer phenomenon, I always say, I think the experiencers are about to have their day, because as we allow things to unfold in the political process, we're getting to a certain point. But it's the people having these increasing encounters where they're getting consistent messages for humanity and starting to form a new narrative about our future, these people are going to have more and more credibility. And that's the trend that we see at MUFON, is that the consistency and experiencer reports are rising. The messages are consistent, and they fall in line with a lot of really ancient teachings. And so the next evolution in this, in my opinion, is not going to come from the political process. It's going to come from discoveries outside of that management of the information.
What would you say over the past year, Ron, and James, you can jump in on this too, but what would you say over the past year has been like a report that you've received at MUFON that's set off alarm bells? Like, wow, this is, this is something we need to investigate more deeply. This is a big story. Maybe it's not even made headlines that we might even not even heard about.
There's some USO activity off the West Coast that we've been unable to really put our explanations on. There's some video analysis out there. I think I've shared it with you guys in the past, but definitely some things happening around the oceans, around the Catalina area off Southern California. And those are the things that are attracting our attention at the moment.
I get I get intelligence folks, military folks, all the time reaching out to me, and I'm told that there's activity almost 24/7, about 200 miles off the East Coast. And I get, like, I actually have the coordinates. I have to get a boat that could go 200 miles off the coast. And I've actually talked to some people about that, but I've been given coordinates to some of this UAP activity in the oceans as recently as last week.
I spoke to
it's a major hotspot out there.
Yeah, I would love to know the exact area, because I've gotten also confirmation from U.S. Marine Corps pilots traveling up a couple hundred miles off the East Coast, and what they witnessed was unbelievable, and traveling at 10 times faster than they could possibly travel. And they, I don't know how many pilots and how many were a part of that that flight pattern, but there were multiple who witnessed.
You know what was really frustrating, because a lot of times the military will use that excuse, source and methods, right? So it's like, oh, well, we can't give you the gun cam footage because it reveals this, that, and the other thing. And yet, even when a military, like fighter pilot, whether in the Navy or Air Force, whoever, takes his cell phone out and documents it, that's classified. They won't share that either. So it's like, right. That's just an excuse they use. Like, right. I can't wait for them to, like, the dump that's going to happen where this stuff gets released. I've talked to so many insiders, intelligence officials, tell me exactly, like, I have them giving me the exact locations of where this stuff is being stored on the various systems and how to get access to it. And I'm taking that and I'm providing it directly to members of Congress, because it needs to go in direct.
That's crazy. I mean, you have to go to this computer terminal. You have to type in this.
It's pretty insane.
I swear to walk them through this process. It's insanity. Well, so Ron,
what's becoming more and more apparent is that we're dealing with multiple versions of non-human intelligence, rather it be interdimensional time travelers, beings that have been here all along, potentially aliens, plasma beings that we're just now starting to get our heads wrapped around, that there could be these beings that are primarily energy-based that literally swim in the atmosphere. The answer to non-human intelligence is not a single answer. And I'm part of the growing consensus that a lot of what we're seeing, whether it has extraterrestrial origin or not, is something that is based here on the planet. It's been with us since the dawn of recorded history, and it's becoming more and more evident as our technology gets better. These things that got picked up in 2004 off the Nimitz were largely captured in the variety of ways they were because of new technology that they were testing. And so as our ability to detect these things that have been kind of in here all along gets better, it's harder and harder to dismiss them. And just like Tim Burchett said in that clip that you cut, the oceans are vast and deep, and it's quite possible that there is another intelligent race, even an offshoot of humanity, that's been here all along. And planet Earth has been through a lot of cycles the surface of the planet is not safe real estate. And so if you're an advanced race and you're here on this planet, and, you know, we go back billions of years, underground is the place to go. Otherwise, an asteroid or natural disaster is going to wipe out everything on the surface of the planet at some stage or another. So the idea that there is an ancient, long-standing, technologically advanced race that has been here all along is gaining more and more traction. And so, you know, whether that has extraterrestrial connections, which I believe it does, it's a big part of the story we're seeing.
Yeah, James, on that point, I mean, we heard from Burchett talking about these underground space, whatever they're. I mean, I've spoken to secret space program insiders that could describe them as arcs. When you saw that activity off of Venezuela, as we reported on our show, there was allegedly one of these massive arcs right there near the Orinoco oil belt. So it's all about oil, Russia, China, right there in the Orinoco oil belt. But there's also a massive space arc that's sitting there as one of the locations. Again, take it or leave it, but that's what we've reported on our show. What do you think about what you're hearing from Congressman Burchett and what Ron was just saying?
So, you know, yeah, I make documentaries and I put the documentaries out for people to see, but I do that because I'm just sharing my personal investigations with the general public because I'm absolutely fascinated by the topic. And I'm curious by nature. I really want to know what's going on. And the other day, just a few months ago, I was at Age of Disclosure opening, and there was an individual there who's investigated in an official capacity the phenomenon for over 16 years. And I'm talking with this individual, and I could see Leslie Kane, she also attended the event, and I could see her on the other side of the room at this cocktail party after the movie ended. And I could see her looking at me, and she knew who I was talking to. She knew. And I said, I walked up to this individual and I said, you know, I've heard that there are very few people on the planet that have the bigger picture of what's going on. This individual said, yeah, I'd say probably maybe 10 have the biggest part of the picture. That's the whole picture. I was like, 10? My
10
God.
people? That's it?
That's what he said. And then I said, well, like, you investigated in official capacity for over like 16 years. Like, how many would you consider yourself? Like one of how many? And he's like, probably one of 30. I was like, one of 30? My God. What about like Hal Puthoff and Eric Davis? He's like, maybe one of 50, maybe one of 100. Hard to say for sure. And then I said, well, I heard that and I got a crowbar, man. I'm trying to pry information out of this individual, but he's very guarded. And I said, well, I heard that the bigger picture is a little scary. And he goes, yeah, I could see that. And I was like, you can see that? Like, how can you see that? Like, give me some more. Like, yeah. And I said, like, scary how? Like, oh, you don't need to be worried about your safety. No, and I said, well, how is it scary? He goes, probably the intent. I'm like, intent? Jesus. So then I said, well, like, I was going to say, like, what about that? That's a little, and then this individual just like, somebody just from the crowd just walks up in between the two of us. And I look over at Leslie and I see her looking at me, and we had this immediate sort of telepathic communication, like it ended right there. So I didn't get to find out anything more than that. But if anybody's out there in the intelligence community listening to this show, contact me, even if it's off the record. I want to know more about this.
Well, I mean, let's speculate. I mean, I guess we could get in the area of speculation with what he's saying there. If you listen to other, other people who believe that it's okay for us, the intent for us is that we're living in like a matrix. What we're dealing with is a bit of a simulation, right?
Absolutely.
And some sort of a reptilian, race is controlling everything.
This is something that I organically came to this conclusion, okay? And I think that if you think about it, you look at what the phenomenon does, okay? And the phenomenon has done made some pretty bold moves. I mean, you look at like Hudson Valley sightings, you look at Belgium wave in the late 80s, early 90s, you look at 1997 over Phoenix, Arizona. I mean, there were thousands of people that saw that incredible show of craft, of orbs. I mean, they've hovered over some games in Italy in the 50s. I mean, they've done some pretty overt, we're here kind of things, not to the point where it would, be, hover over the Macy's Day Parade or something, or the next Super Bowl, but they've made some pretty bold moves. But they haven't made their presence overtly, unequivocally, beyond a shadow of doubt, known. Certainly not to the general public. Obviously, the military might be a completely different story. But so you look at that and you think, all right, well, they too are in on the secrecy. Now, why would they be in on the secrecy? Does our presence on this earth have something to do with them? Is there a connection there? Mm-hmm. Are we a petri dish? You ask these questions, right? It's all speculation. But
what do you think, Ron?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, that there's so many different elements of this conversation at the moment, but what we're unveiling in the new film has a lot to do with what is next and what these agendas are. And certainly it's all speculation except among a select few. What James was just saying, let me just go back to the idea that there's only a few people on planet Earth who may have the bigger picture. When I was making the Accidental Truth movies, and even before that, it shocked me that government had no problem destroying evidence. So it's just like you hear these stories about they went into a village in Vietnam, burned everything, so there's no trace of what they did. They've done that with the history of this phenomenon. And that's why when people say, well, there must be some archive with all this stuff, I'm not convinced that there is. I think that there's certain elements that were placed in charge of guarding this information that had no problem just getting rid of stuff like it never happened. And so as people die and as compartmentalized programs age out, the idea that there's only a few people on the planet that really know what's going on from ancient history all the way till now with this phenomenon it's understandable why it's such a small amount of people. And when you start factoring in the other things, like what is the actual agenda for humanity from a planetary standpoint, from a galactic standpoint, and from an energetic dimensional standpoint, it gets very, very complex. And the answers to the questions become more elusive. But one thing that we're discovering right now, and I pointed out in the new movie, we're just getting to the point, and maybe just getting there, where we're starting to ask the right questions. And that's the beginning of the ultimate discovery. And I have a feeling that the evolution of humanity is going to be upon us before we even knew what to ask. We didn't ask for AI. We didn't ask for our entire culture to be completely changed by it, but here it is. And the people that are planning this and the non-human intelligence that is planning, the future of planet Earth and the future of humanity as we know it in this matrix, they know what's going on. They're implementing something that has been put into place since the beginning. I believe there's different groups that have different agendas and there's different outcomes for humanity, but we are being guided and even potentially managed into the next generation of what this planet and this civilization is going to look like.
You brought a clip, Ron, that I wanted to play here. Can you tell us and set this up? What are we looking at here? The lengthier clip that we have.
Oh, okay. So the first part of the new Accidental Truth movie, about the first 40 minutes, is a deep dive into behind the scenes in Washington. There's a lot of people that have said, oh, I'm there, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Well, I documented my journey through there, inside the offices of Congresspeople being briefed, inside the hearings, inside these conversations that aren't documented because people don't want to go on camera saying these things. But what we're about to see here is how myself and a small team of people literally infiltrated the hearings in Washington, D.C., and were able to get Lou Elizondo through texting live to Congressman Burleson what questions to ask. We got Lou Elizondo to finally admit that Lockheed Martin indirectly was the one that had these materials. Now, in the first Accidental Truth movie, we were chasing the origin of materials that were supposed to be given to Bigelow Aerospace. Robert Bigelow says he never got them. It's been a big mystery. But when Lou admitted that it was Lockheed that had that because of the text that we got Burleson to answer, it blew the lid off the whole thing because now we know the aerospace company that had it. And then I went to Dr. Gary Nolan and he drops a bombshell. So that's what's in this clip. Then this is from the new film.
Right,
this is from a clip called Hacking the Hearings.
All right, let's take a look at this.
Ron James and his team were more involved in the hearing than anyone realized.
I actually had the opportunity to submit a question. So we'll see if they ask it. It's going to be really cool if they do.
During Congressman Eric Burleson's questioning of Lou Elizondo, a small group in the back of the room was actively texting the congressman questions to ask in real time.
If we were in a secure setting, if we were in a SCIF, would you be able to provide or get access to something, whether it's visuals or material that we could put our hands on, or biologics, that would convince me?
Sir, that decision would not be mine. That would be to the gatekeeper still in the U.S. government.
Does any branch of the United States government or defense contractors possess technology?
Sir, there's documentation that I believe was submitted for the record that was approved for release by the U.S. Pentagon, by the Department of Defense Office of Pre-Publication Security Review, and it states one of the reasons why my predecessor program, OSAP, was trying to collect material of unknown origin.
So that was quite a stunt to be able to go into these hearings and have that effect on the outcome from the back of the room. It just shows, what individuals that want to get in and try to do things can do. And Washington is a lot more open than people think it is. And, to go in there and get these meetings and to be able to brief these members of Congress and to realize that these guys, especially the people in our elected representatives that are trying to get to the bottom of this, they are genuinely interested in doing this. I don't believe that they're part of any kind of big rollout of information. They are trying to get the information. They're being given what they are. I don't think they're part of the conspiracy, so to speak, but I think they're being played just as much as the rest of us.
So I want to ask you guys about the whistleblower piece of this, James, and feel free to jump in with what you were going to say there, James. I just wanted to ask because we've referred, one particular whistleblower over to a member of Congress's office, and that person, once they reached out to their office and was setting up a meeting, suddenly found themselves fired from their job, inexplicably. And this person, there was zero reason for this person to have lost their job. And so I'm curious, what your experience is, maybe the forces that are behind these members of Congress who are really trying to keep them from going towards the truth.
So, Ron, great talk there and great presentation on that one. I'm hearing today, actually just an hour or so ago, I spoke directly with a sitting member of Congress, part of the task force, who said the current administration, the Trump administration, executive branch, are because this individual had street addresses and names of different companies where allegedly these goodies, the reverse engineering that's going on, is being kept. And so the current administration is providing access, saying give this individual access. This individual, along with a couple other people, are going to these locations. It's a big step in the right direction. Obviously,
it really is.
If Lockheed wants to just tuck this away somewhere, but they have very specific spots they're going to. They're going to look for evidence if something was recently moved or what's going on in these particular hangars. So that's happening. And also paralleling that is there's going to be a press conference coming up soon with sitting members of Congress, part of the task force from both parties, Democrats and Republicans. And they are in the process right now of crafting the language that needs to come out of the office of the President of the United States. And that language will provided President Trump is willing to use that language, that will provide additional security, protection, immunity for the following whistleblowers. So it is a work in progress, but it's happening, and I'm very optimistic about it. But the members of Congress really need to hear from us. They need to know that we have their support, or we are supporting their efforts. I think it's incredibly important that the president knows how many people out there are watching this, just to reach out, take a few minutes, contact different representatives and say, we really appreciate your push on further transparency on this topic. It's important to us. They need to hear that.
Yeah.
And the president even needs to hear that. So anybody out there watching that takes a few minutes, this is going to be
everybody get involved. Write your congressperson.
They need to hear from all of us.
Speaking of Congress,
we still have power.
speaking of Congress, what do you think Congress should force the Pentagon, Pete Hegseth, otherwise, to answer under oath? Like, right, you're digging, as Hegseth said, we're digging. We're going to look through this. We're going to, we don't have a timetable yet. We'll get it to you, but we are digging. What should Congress force the Pentagon to answer to in front of Congress? Like, what answers would you guys like specifically in front of Congress from the Pentagon?
Well, the thing is, your average congressperson is not read into any level of secrecy that would entitle them to this information. In other words, like David Grush is working for Eric Burleson right now, but does that mean that David Grush can go into Burleson and lay out every single thing that he knows? There's clearance issues, and those can be overcome with time. But the fact of the matter is that even a whistleblower that has information, not necessarily a whistleblower, but somebody in possession of highly classified information, cannot just walk into Tim Burchett's office and tell him everything he knows, because Burchett would have to be cleared too. And so you have the Gang of Eight, who is supposedly able to receive all of this information, but the other sitting members of Congress are not really in a position to receive it, even if there's somebody who's willing to share it. So it gets very, very complicated. Do you have that clip of that I put into your folder of Burleson and Tim Burchett talking about Trump disclosing?
Yeah, so explain what we're about to see here. This is the members of Congress talking about Trump's disclosure project.
Yeah, the conversation about Trump disclosing has been going on for some time. And this is a clip, nobody's ever seen this before, of Congressman Tim Burchett and Eric Burleson both talking about Trump disclosing.
These other presidents being read in, being allowed to be read in, those other presidents weren't Donald J. Trump.
There's rumors that perhaps Donald Trump might move to declassify some of this stuff.
I hope so. I think Donald Trump has demonstrated a pattern of willingness to be transparent and to disclose, and I can't wait to see what Trump 47 is going to do.
We're not going to get total disclosure till President Trump decides to disclose it. And through my conversations with him and his people, I feel like that is forthcoming.
So I just want to ask you on that point, like, because Birch is pretty confident that, if Trump wants to disclose it, we'll get it. But we've seen with JFK files, we've also seen with the Epstein Transparency Act, that there's 3 million documents we still haven't gotten there, and the cover-up still continues. President Clinton, if I'm not mistaken, was told that you're on a need-to-know basis about UFO program, and he was told that you're not at the level. You're the president of the United States. You're not on a need-to-know basis, but you don't reach that level. So, are you confident as Burchett on getting all of this transparency?
Once again, we're going to get something, but we're not going to get the whole entire truth.
Yeah.
When President Obama said in that interview with Brian Taylor Cohen, right after he said, yeah, aliens are real, but I haven't seen them. And then he said something that was very poignant and actually correct, I believe, is he said, unless there's this vast conspiracy that even presidents aren't read into, the fact of the matter is there is a small conspiracy and presidents are not read in. The people that are guarding this information have been so compartmentalized and buried so deep and so entrenched within industry and freedom from the Freedom of Information Act and able to keep this stuff completely away from our front-facing politicians and large swaths of our front-facing military. So to me, the most revelatory thing that Obama said in that interview was when he said that, unless there's a conspiracy that even presidents aren't read into, because I believe that there is. And so Trump is going to get a certain amount of information that I believe all presidents have received, but what he's going to disclose, again, I think that for the people looking for this major disclosure are going to be somewhat disappointed.
James, what do you think?
I interviewed Gerald Ford briefly. He had pushed for congressional hearings in the 60s when that infamous clip of Dr. Jalen Hynek just does a dismissive characterization of alleged landings that took place in Michigan in 1966. And as a result of that, he called it swamp gas. Maybe they're seeing swamp gas. Like, oh my God. And so he gave me the interview, but then I asked him about during his presidency. Did you find out anything more during your presidency? And he was like, he just stopped me dead in my tracks there. I'm not going to talk about that at all. Then I interviewed Jimmy Carter. I got him at a book signing in the late 90s, and I got him to admit that he'd seen the UFO and that he'd looked into it during his presidency, and essentially said, oh, we weren't happy with the answer we were getting, or we were getting different answers, and you could see his frustration clearly. And then I was trying to get direct access to President Clinton, and through Podesta and a handful of others during his administration, they said that they did make inquiries, particularly with a laser-like focus into Roswell, and that they were absolutely not happy with the answers they were getting. So
they were stonewalled.
They were stonewalled. So
yeah,
But one more thing I want to mention quickly is that I am friends with an individual who sat in the room in a skiff, a sensitive compartmentalized information facility, with Senator Rubio when he was senator at the time, Secretary of State now, but when he was senator at the time, with people with impeccable credentials, intelligence folks that are claiming to be working firsthand in labs with alien technology. Now, as a filmmaker, I ask these individuals, God, put me in the room. What was it like when you guys were hearing this stuff? This is amazing. This is a firsthand witness. Clearly you guys vetted the credentials. Like, what? Put me in the room. Very intense, very sober, very serious, like slowly trying to wrap their mind around, holy shit, this is probably happening. How do we get this information out? How do we process this information? So what I'm curious, and I don't know the answer to this, and if anybody else gets the opportunity to speak or ask questions to Rubio or President Trump, is does Rubio know more than President Trump? Or has Rubio briefed President Trump? Or has Rubio tracked down those firsthand witnesses in labs and got them directly in a skiff with Trump? I don't know if they have to be in a skiff or where they'd have to be. But Trump, I'm told, does have the ability with the stroke of a pen to provide immunity to these firsthand witnesses. And I think that that's what we should be focusing on, is what can President Trump do to protect these folks? What language needs to be written? What does he need to actually say? Because when he said what he said on Truth Social, that was very encouraging. A lot of people were happy about it. But I talked to firsthand intelligence folks, and they said, it's a great move in the right direction, but he actually needs to say X, Y, and Z, and that'll make us feel a lot more protected. So that language is currently being crafted carefully right now, and there's going to be a press conference, a press conference coming up with members of Congress, and I'm told that's happening fairly soon.
So in the new Accidental Truth Next movie, there's a scene where I actually induced Senator Kirsten Gillibrand to look right at my camera and make a direct promise to whistleblowers that if they were to come forward, they would be protected. But unfortunately, there's also clips in the surrounding segment that shows that hasn't worked out too well for some of them. So yeah, James is right. The law needs to be evolved and the conditions need to be evolved. There's a picture that I just texted you guys. It's from the hearing introducing Kozlowski as the new head of Aero, and hopefully you can bring that up. But that's Pentagon. Yeah, there we go. So, this really kind of tells a story. That's Pentagon spokesperson Susan Gough sitting right next to him during this hearing. And she is there to basically, in my opinion, and the opinion of others, that's a warning that you're getting from her. She has been the front person for the Pentagon in denying all of the UFO-related activity. And for her to be sitting there at that hearing, giving dirty looks at the camera every time whistleblowers were encouraged to come forward, a lot of people believe that was a signal of don't believe it. We were talking about Rubio. There's a very interesting thing, and anybody can check this out. Marco Rubio, before the first UFO hearings with Bray and Moultrie from the Defense Department, he was very, very vocal about getting to the bottom of this UFO stuff. It was a big thing for him. And he was out there. He was one of the biggest front-facing people back then in, I think it was 2021, 22, when we had the first hearings. He was very vocal about it. After those hearings, everybody went into a closed session, the people with the proper clearances. Marco Rubio never spoke out as vocally as he had previously once he came out of those hearings. And I believe that, and this is conjecture, but I think it makes a lot of sense, that he was really told some things that made him understand why the secrecy, and he piped down about the whole thing. And then when he did his interview with Dan Farah in the movie Age of Disclosure, he later actually walked that back when he was asked about it. He said, well, yeah, they did some creative editing, and that was back then, and I was only repeating what I was told. He kind of has backtracked, both in his appearance in the movie and his vocal position on getting the UFO information out. And this is all, if you just look at the history of Rubio and his statements, you'll see that this is going on. So I definitely think that he was briefed, at least to a point, where he understood the secrecy. And I have this theory about this, that it's really easy to get somebody to keep a secret if they believe the secret needs to be kept. It's a lot harder to get somebody to keep a secret by coercion and saying, if you spill the beans about this, you're going to be, persecuted or tormented or punished. So I think that in certain cases, these guys are being given information that makes them sign on to the secrecy instead of trying to fight it. And there's plenty of evidence of that through this front-facing political process.
James, I guess I'll get you guys out of here on this, which is the concern I've been hearing from UFO insiders and people like yourselves who've done the work and been in the halls of Congress repeatedly, have said to me that one of their biggest concerns is having this entire disclosure process driven by like the intelligence community, like the CIA pushing it in a certain direction and in a more nefarious direction, and we don't get fully what we deserve in this. Are you concerned about that, and really what are you hoping for over the next couple of weeks from President Trump?
Well, John Kleskowski said it all to me when he said, James, I cannot part my hair without approval from the DOD. Yep. And you can quote me on that. Like, my hands are tied. So I think it's really important. I mean, he's basically like, one of those people, like almost like when you're kidnapped and you're giving that statement on video, everything's fine here, but
the image I just shared, it tells that story. I mean, that's that story in a picture.
Right.
And I think we need to work with our lawmakers. People say, "Oh, it's the government." No, there are some good people in there. Both sides. There really are. I meet with them. I meet some of their families, like good people. I think we need to support their effort. I think we need to support President Trump. Let him know that we've got his back on this issue. Let members of Congress know, our representatives, that we support their push for further transparency on this topic. It's going to happen. All of us together are going to make this happen. And if you think you're too small to make a difference, try sharing a room with a mosquito overnight.
Ron, final thoughts.
I wish that the new movie was ready to come out right now. It's going to be 2 to 3 more months before it actually hits the street, even though it's done. We really blow the lid off a lot of this stuff. We answer a lot of these questions. We illustrate fully what's going on in D.C. We show some very interesting case studies. I actually wanted to test Arrow as to how much they could be trusted, so to speak. So I retrieved some samples and we document the whole thing of some very interesting metal that has a very long pedigree. We deliver it to Arrow at the same time we're having an independent lab examine the stuff. And what happened is, it's just amazing, the difference in results. So the whole political process that we're seeing, again, we're only going to get so far. The real answers are coming from us making our own discoveries. And so this film, I'm so excited about it. And I'm so eager for people to see it, because a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, that's speculation, we're laying it out for people in such a way. The first Accidental Truth movie won 28 Film Festival Awards and was regarded as a really solid film. And this one is the follow-up to it, and we're taking things in a whole new direction. It's narrated by Matthew Modine again, special appearances by Thomas Jane and some other very well-known people, and a huge cast. So I'm super excited for it to come out.
Accidental Truth next, Beyond UFO Disclosure by Ron James, narrated by Matthew Modine. Can't wait to see it. And James, also, where can people find your latest work and what you're working on next?
Moment of Contact, New Revelations of Alien Encounters, Amazon and Apple TV, Google Play, YouTube movies. There's a link I think I provided one of your producers. And if you don't believe that live aliens or beings of non-human intelligence were seen across the town of Varginha, Brazil in 1996, chicken parmesan a dinner on me after you've watched the movie.
Oh, it's an incredible film.
You will believe.
Yeah, I'm telling you. My friend John, who we always talk about this stuff, he was the one who tipped me off about the movie a few years ago. He said, "You've got to watch this movie," and I was just absolutely blown away by it. And my wife and I both watched it. So incredible film, incredible film. Well, gentlemen, maybe we're at this tipping point moment. Fingers crossed.
We're all with bated breath.
Thank you for your continued reporting on this at Redacted. We all in the community appreciate you guys very much.
Clayton, you guys are totally awesome. And the fairness and willingness to look at all angles of the situation are appreciated by everybody.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ron. Thank you, James, for your incredible work, the both of you, and for your honesty and willingness to be able to talk about it on our show. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us on.
Thanks, gentlemen.